All right. Good morning, everybody out there. We're running this as a live stream, but it'll be recorded and shared to the page and stay up there. So you can always refer to it later. My name's Robert Kelly. I am the owner and operator of R. Kelly Consulting Services, LLC, also known as the DOTHealth.com. We are here for all of your DOT compliance needs, and we can answer any questions for you, help you get into compliance. So please feel free to reach out to us. And if you find this video helpful, like and subscribe. If you have a comment, question, concern, please leave it in the notes or contact us through the website. So on today's video, we're going to discuss your OP-1, or if you are a Mexican company operating in the United States, your OP-2. We're mostly going to concentrate on your OP-1 because that's what most companies will, 99% of the companies that operate in the United States will be utilizing this. The other 1% would be the OP-2. So, as stated in the title, your OP-1 and you, what a lot of people don't realize is that this is probably the most important document in your company. Your OP-1 is the document that you fill out and file with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration or the Department of Transportation in order to obtain your US DOT number. Everybody knows, anybody in trucking knows, you cannot function, you cannot operate commercial vehicles in the United States without a US DOT number. Well, having that US DOT number is a pretty good sized responsibility. And the OP-1 pretty much lays out those responsibilities, at least the overall umbrella of what's required in order for you to operate and receive that operating authority or your US DOT number. We will cover this thing and kind of what it binds you to and what it commits you to operate. Now, why this is the most forgotten is because you fill it out one time when you first start your company. You send it off with some other paperwork, you answer a few questions, and they send you a DOT number. And then you think you're good to go. The problem is that most companies forget that they sign an affidavit that this basically commits you to several requirements that are obligations under federal law. So we're going to kind of go through this thing today. We're going to focus on the obligations that often get forgotten. And hopefully this will help you out. So what we have over here is we have the OP-1 in the screen, and it's got instructions and who you are and what you are and how to complete it to get motor carrier, property carrier, or broker authority to operate. So the difference for the OP-2 is it's mostly in Spanish. Now it does, when it gets down to the application process, is in both Spanish and in English. The instructions are in Spanish, but the form itself is in English. So the OP-2, like I said earlier, is for Mexican carriers who want to operate in the United States. And it commits them to the same things that the OP-1 does. So your overview of your operating authority. According to this, depending on the type of business operation, motor carrier, broker, freight forwarder, shipper, vehicle registrant, or cargo tank facility, and what will be transported, companies may be required to register for both interstate operating authority, which is form OP-1 or OP-2, and US DOT number, which means you need to fill out an MCS 150, which is your insurance and your travel information. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration enforces compliance with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations and the Hazardous Material Regulations, which govern safety and financial responsibility. FMCSA's registration requirements reflect the focus on both of these concerns. So it gives you a link to the registration, where you can do it. Who needs operating authority? Who needs to fill out an OP-1? Before beginning interstate operations in the United States, all authorized for-hire motor carriers of non-exempt property and passengers Brokers and freight forwarders based in the U.S. or Canada must obtain operating authority by submitting the appropriate form in the OP-1 series. For a description of the different types of OP-1 forms and the various FMCSA requirements for obtaining operating authority, please see What are the steps in getting operating authority? These are fantastic websites. These will walk you through. It is pretty straightforward. So, how to apply? This goes into how to apply online. You fill all of this documents out. You can apply by mail. You can apply online. How much does it cost? What are your steps? You submit the very first step, and why this is the most important document in your business is because you can't operate a trucking company without an OP-1. The very first step, step one, submit an OP-1. Okay. Then you receive your MC number or your freight forwarding number, your motor carrier number or your freight forwarding number. Okay. Then you have, there's a protest period. You have to send in your insurance company information. You have to have a process agent with the FMCSA, and then you'll get your number. You'll receive a certificate, permit, or license for operating authority from FMCSA. So we go through all of this stuff. Here's where it gets important. These are the things, and let me get through, scroll down. So applicant's oath, that we'll get back to that. That will be very, very important. So here is your form OP-1. You will have to fill out your legal business name. Do you now have operating authority from another application, or have you already tried this before, things like that. So basically what they're trying to, by asking that information, they're trying to keep you from opening multiple US DOT numbers under the same company, things of that nature. So you have your legal business name, doing business as, your principal place of business, who the authorized representative is, basically the person responsible for the operations. US DOT number, once you get that, you will fill that information out. If you don't have it, you'll see the instructions, what type of corporation you are, what type of operating authority you want to apply for. Then you provide your insurance information. If you're going to operate under, you have to, under 10,001 pounds, but transport hazmat, still got to have a DOT number. Section 4, safety certification. This is the meat and potatoes of what I wanted to get to, and why this is the most, why I feel like this is the most often overlooked document. So for motor carriers who are operating vehicles, applicants subject to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. If you will operate vehicles of more than 10,001 pounds gross vehicle weight rating and are subject to pertinent portions of the U.S. DOT's Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, the federal regulations, you must certify as follows. Excuse me, got a little cough there. Applicant has access to and is familiar with all applicable U.S. DOT regulations relating to the safe operation of commercial vehicles and the safe transportation of hazardous materials, and will comply with these regulations. That means that you have access to the DOT, the Fed regs, that you will follow them, that you have somebody familiar with them and understands them, and that you will follow these regulations, all of them. So then it goes on, in so certifying, applicant is verifying that at a minimum, okay, you are hereby verifying, by signing this application, you are verifying that your company has in place a system and an individual responsible for ensuring overall compliance with the FMCSRs. You have to have somebody designated as a safety director. You have to have somebody who knows the federal regulations and ensures that your company complies with the federal regulations. Now, that can be the owner. You don't have to have the designated safety director title, but you have to have one person in your company that knows the Fed regs, knows how to apply them, and knows and make sure that your company is following them at all times. Okay? So you can produce a copy of the FMCSRs and the Hazardous Materials Transportation Regulations. You have to have the book. You have to have the most updated current copy of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. Comes out once a year. So you need to make sure that you have that information. has in place a driver safety training / orientation program. Now, this is up for a lot of debate. FMCSRs, in my opinion, lack a little filling out in the training section. You have to have a driver safety training and orientation program. Now, that can be any program. The orientation program can be pretty much anything you want. You bring them in, you sit them down, you show them the rules, make sure they have a copy of the federal regulations, tell them what's expected of them out of your company, this and that and the other. Now, as far as training goes, there is training all over the place out there. Now, a lot of companies say, well, we went on a road test and that was training. No, a road test is to see if the guy knows how to operate the vehicle. Or I say guy, I apologize. The driver is able to physically operate the vehicle safely on the road so that you know that you don't put a guy who can't, or a person who can't drive a large commercial vehicle on the roads. Road test is a test drive for a driver. The training program should be ongoing at all times. There's nothing that says that you just train one time, but there's also nothing that says that you have to be ongoing. You have to do ongoing training. But it does say that you have to have in place a driver safety and training / orientation program. If you do not train your drivers, you are asking for trouble. If something goes wrong, heaven forbid, and you have no training documentation on your driver, you are in violation of your OP-1. That is a violation of the federal regulations. Now, the federal regulations don't say how much training. The federal regulations don't say how often to train. They don't say anything like that. But I will tell you that every industry standard out there, from Smith System to J.J. Keller to NATME, the North American Transportation Management Institute, all of these guys, every book out there tells you that ongoing training is important for drivers. What happens is these people, as these drivers get out there and they drive and they get comfortable, just like you and I do in our regular vehicles. We get comfortable. We don't pay as much attention because we feel like we've got a good handle on everything. And then something goes wrong and something bad happens. Or new guidance comes out with the advent of cell phones and data trackers and everything else like that. New information is out there and these things change. And you need to make sure that you are training your drivers on an ongoing basis. I would say at least an annual training, and you need to be having safety meetings. All of the industry standards out there, any of the books that rely on the industry standards and set that information forth, say that you should continually train your drivers. There's a document out there from the Federal Highway Safety Administration. It's a relatively older document. It's called On Guard, and it talks about why just having a commercial driver's license isn't enough, that companies should continue with ongoing safety training to remind and refresh drivers on how to safely operate these commercial motor vehicles. Because let's face it, when a commercial motor vehicle crashes, it causes significant damage. They weigh, up to 80,000 pounds without a permit. Permitted loads are well above that. But on average, your commercial motor vehicle can weigh up to 80,000 pounds traveling down the roadway. That's 10 times the weight of a pickup truck, of a standard big pickup truck, much less a Honda or a Toyota car, small minivan, things like that. These things do catastrophic damage when collisions happen. So the idea is that you continually train your drivers. Keep training, bring them in for safety meetings, answer questions, bring in an outside expert to host a safety meeting and answer questions. Somebody, we do that. My business does that. I go into companies and I answer questions and do Q&As with drivers, talk about the latest things that we're seeing on the roadways and things like that. So these are all things that are part of a good safety training and orientation program. And what does your OP-1 say? It says you must have that program in place. So next one is prepared and maintains an accident register. All right. An accident register. You have to log and maintain documentation for, and we'll get into accident registers in another video, but you have to maintain documentation and log every DOT reportable collision that your company is involved in. Personally, I recommend that you log every collision, whether it's DOT reportable or not. A DOT reportable collision is one in which someone was killed, there was loss of life, there was disabling damage to vehicles that had to be towed away from the scene, or there were injuries that required treatment away from the scene. So those are DOT reportable collisions. So you need to log all of those collisions and maintain that log. 390.15 requires you to do so. So the next one is another big one. Is familiar with DOT regulations governing driver qualifications and has in place a system for overseeing driver qualification requirements. If you haven't taken a look at my other videos, I've got 2 videos out on the driver qualification process. Driver qualification is the single most damaging documents if they're not done properly. You have to follow all of the regulations and you have to maintain that documentation. And your OP-1 is your commitment to the U.S. Department of Transportation that you will be familiar with the DOT regulations governing driver qualifications, and you'll have in place a system for overseeing driver qualification requirements. Bottom line, you have to have a driver qualification file. You have to have somebody who can oversee the driver qualification file. Hopefully, it's the same person from number 1 that says an individual responsible for ensuring overall compliance with the federal regulations. Guys, you have to do this stuff. This is what you agreed to when you signed up to get a DOT number. So number 6, has in place policies and procedures consistent with U.S. DOT regulations governing driving and operational safety of motor vehicles, including driver's hours of service, vehicle inspections, repair, and maintenance. You have to have a policy manual. You have to have a set of policies and procedures that are consistent with the U.S. DOT regulations. Doesn't mean you can say that, well, okay, where's your policies and procedures, and hand somebody the federal regulations. Those aren't policies and procedures. Those are the law. You need policies and procedures that are pertinent to your particular company and how your company operates. So these are the things that you have to have in place. Inspection, repair, and maintenance. We're going to get into that in another video one day. I'm going to cover how you put together a maintenance file, how you put together an inspection and repair file, what you're required to keep in there. That's all listed out. Every bit of this is listed in the federal regulations, which is why, go back to number 1, you have to have a system and an individual responsible for ensuring overall compliance with the federal regulations. So hours of service, we will get into hours of service. Those are all videos that will be forthcoming. Is familiar with and will have in place on the appropriate effective date a system for complying with the U.S. DOT regulations governing alcohol and controlled substance testing requirements. Drug and alcohol testing. You have to have this thing. You have to have this program in place. If you're a small company, you need to be a part of a consortium. You have to have a drug and alcohol test done before you put a driver behind the wheel, period. Before they operate any commercial motor vehicle for you, you must have proof of a negative result of a drug and alcohol test. You have to have in place a random drug and alcohol testing program. That's where the consortiums come in. If you're a small company, you get dumped into the mix in a consortium, and then they just call you up and say, hey, Joe Driver is due for his random, and they send him for the random drug and alcohol test. If you don't do that, you're in violation. If you don't get random testing, if you can't prove that you have a random testing program in place, you're in violation of the federal regulations, which means you're in violation of your OP-1. So these are the things that you have to swear to in this thing. So then you get into affiliations, anybody you're associated with, things like that, household goods certifications. What is the scope of your operating authority? Here's where this gets important, and this is where we're going to kind of finish our video. Applicant's oath. So we've talked about all of the things, the meat and potatoes of this thing and what you're committing to. Well, this is where you make that commitment. And it's very important. It says I, and you put your name there. I, my name. Verify under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States of America that all information supplied on this form or relating to this application is true and correct. Further, I certify that I am qualified and authorized to file this application. I know that willful misstatements or omissions of material fact constitute federal criminal violations punishable under 18 U.S.C. 1001 by punished imprisonment up to 5 years and fines of up to $10,000 for each offense. Additionally, these misstatements are punishable as perjury under 18 U.S.C. 1621, which provides for fines up to $2,000 or imprisonment up to 5 years for each offense. All right, let's stop right there for a second. So you're going to sign this and you're going to swear and affirm that everything in here is true. That every bit of this is true, and under penalty of perjury and under penalty of violating federal law if you make a misstatement or a willful misstatement in this application or omission. Let's roll back up to this. Went right past it. Safety certification. So if, let's say that you fill this OP-1 out and you start working and you start doing it and everything else like that, and then you're inspected, you have a compliance review 6 months after you open, a year after, 2 years, 10 years after you open. Somebody comes in and evaluates what your company and does a compliance review on your company. And they say, okay, who's in charge of making sure that you comply with the FMCSRs? Well, we had Joe Smith was our safety director, but we fired him a couple of years ago and we haven't replaced him. Guess what? You just violated federal law. You just made a material misstatement. If you don't have a driver training program, okay, what's your driver training program? Well, we only hire experienced drivers and put them behind the wheel. Okay, do you ever train them? Well, no, they come to us pre-trained. That's a violation of this, which is a material misstatement, which is a violation of federal law and constitutes perjury. You don't have an accident register. Well, yeah, we just don't keep track of that stuff. It's just too much paperwork. Perjury. You don't have a driver qualification program. Perjury. You don't have a policy and procedure manual. Perjury. You don't have a drug and alcohol testing program. Perjury. So essentially, that's why I said in the beginning, this is the most important document in your company, because whoever signs this, whoever is responsible for this, if your company does not have those things in place, they can be charged under USC 1001 and 1621 for perjury and thrown in prison. Because if you don't have those things, you lied when you filled out this document. You perjured yourself when you filled out this document. I'm telling you, folks, this is the most important document that you're ever going to fill out, and it commits you to it. And it's not just a one-shot deal. This is the document that follows you through the entire length of your company. Guys, you have got to make sure that you are adhering to this OP-1. The same thing with the Mexican carriers on an OP-2. They have these same documents. Section 4. Going to Section 4. That's insurance. Sorry. Safety certifications. They're actually safety certifications. So they have driver qualifications, hours of service, drug and alcohol testing, vehicle condition, all of the same things accident monitoring program, production of records, hazardous materials. They have all of these same safety certifications. And they had the same thing. By signing these certifications, the carrier official is on notice that the representations made herein are subject to verification through inspections in the United States and through request for an examination of records and documents. Failure to support the representations contained in this application could form the basis of a proceeding to assess civil penalties and or lead to the revocation of the authority granted. Now, why this is important and why it's different for Mexican carriers is a Mexican carrier is not subject to the United States perjury penalties and things of that nature. So the only thing that we can do, or that the FMCSR can do, is go after them civilly and everything else. But in the United States, if you fill out this document, you sign it, and you don't follow it, you have opened yourself up for the opportunity to go to jail. It's just that, it's just that important. So guys, we're going to leave this video here. We're going to get into other videos as we go on. But, if you like what you hear, if you don't like what you hear, let me know. Leave me some comments. You can always email me at robert@thedothelp.com. Visit our website at thedothelp.com. We can answer questions. We do work on contract basis to make sure that your company is offering safely. We can do compliance reviews, mock compliance reviews. We can do spot checks. We can help with the hiring and qualifying process. We can help with all of that stuff. So, like and follow, subscribe to the video, be notified when new videos come out. Hit that subscribe button. Leave me some comments and let me know what you think. So, good luck, drive safe, and keep on trucking.